But hey, comrades, as the fourth industrial revolution,
We're going live, guys. So thank you very much. The meeting is live on Facebook, and welcome, guys. And I really appreciate that we all join up today, and I appreciate that we made some time today again. I mean, we always do this, which is a very good thing, just to come live on Saturday and talk about technology and talk about how it's changing our lives. And I think it is going to be one of the other successful sessions that you're going to have. And I don't know when you joined us, if ever you might have joined us when Sil Pagama was talking about the fourth industrial revolution. So this is the show. This is today, and I've got a very good, capable guest today who's going to be talking to us and going to be taking us through this particular session. And I'm just trying to do my technology on the side. If everybody can just give me a chance, then we will start officially and introduce each other, and then we start talking about the topic of today. Let me just give me a session. We normally, by the way, start with music sometime when you do these things. Today, we're not fortunate because one of our administrators was not able to join us and was not able to kind of help us with this part because of South African issues. And I'm gonna just put up my team here. And these are the people that are gonna be discussing with us today. And I want us just to get familiar to the faces, and I'm gonna allow them to just do a short introduction of themselves and just to give us who they are, give us some background and where they're coming from. I mean, one thing that we must do for sure, let's not seems like technology is for chosen few. Let's not make as if technology is for people who are better off, who live in certain places. Today, I want just to expose you to the fact that technology and being advanced in life and working with some of the things is all about how you prepare yourself and how hard you want to work. So that's going to be our conversation today. We're trying to make sure that fourth industrial revolution becomes a normal conversation that everybody can just converse with and discuss with and be able to interact with it. Siphiwe, you are the first one on the chair. Why don't you just do a quick introduction, Siphiwe? I mean, just give us a rundown. Who's Siphiwe Ngwenya? Where is he coming from? What is he up to? I mean, you've gone to school somewhere. Just like a background of who you are and then what you're doing currently. Siphiwe, we're on you.
Sanbonan, Ngwenya. I'm a young man who comes from Ivory Park. Currently a data scientist, and I lead a team in a small technology startup that is called Naki Technologies. I studied my data science at Explore Data Science Academy. Previously, I have a statistical background from the University of South Africa. Simple young man from the humble streets of Ivory Park. Nothing special, just someone who loves technology and would like to see the advance of the African child, building African solutions for African problems. I think in summary, that's what I'd say.
It's very interesting you say you are from Ivory Park. And I know for you, it's a given. You kind of like knowledge what is Ivory Park. For some of us, we think Ivory Park, we think Ivory Towers, we think better things. So where is this Ivory Park? What are we talking about when you're talking about Ivory Park?
Okay. So Ivory Park is a township which was founded somewhere around 1989, 1990. It is on the outskirts of Halfway House. Now, Halfway House is a small town that sits dead center in the middle of Pretoria and Johannesburg. So on the outskirts of that, then ngaphandle kunelinye ilokishi elincane. Abantu basethembisa bebathanda ukulibiza ngokuthi eMkhukhwini because when it was established, it was just one massive informal settlement, but it has since developed and we have roads and things like that now. But it remains a township on the outskirts of a town called Halfway House.
Okay, that sounds very interesting there. And my question then, I cannot continue, by the way. I want to explore this even further. You're saying that is a township which is more or less, I think, is on the north of Johannesburg. And it's a township, I mean, within the Midrand area. And kind of like very interestingly, I want to find out how does this data scientist called Siphiwe come to being from a township? Because somebody who was Mlazi, Uwamashu, or Soweto, you normally hear about data scientists, but does not usually connect the dots. I want us just to cover up data scientist, Siphiwe. Ivory Park. Where does this connection come? I mean, how does it actually end up being a thing that of choice, not becoming a police, not becoming a nurse, not becoming a teacher, but you think about something that is not normal for most of us?
So I would say for me, it was generally interest in technology. You grew up in a country like South Africa, where it's not necessarily the most rural of countries if we compare it to other countries on the African continent, but it is still a significantly rural country. So you grow up in an environment where everything that exists has existed in the past and even in its current form. We have not given it a context, and that's where my first problem was. So going forward, it is going to be determined by technology. And if young people, especially us young Africans, do not get involved in technology, solutions Africa will be an afterthought. So if you look at maybe our advancements in science and technology in this space right now, you easily talk, maybe let's talk electric cars, let's keep it very simple. On the African continent, there isn't a single company that manufactures electric cars or maybe even batteries that contain the correct amount of electric density. But thinking is, it's not that this technology is too far away from us. It's technology that exists if we simply make sure that the internet has become something more of a human right as opposed to something that is a privilege in our country. So I will say my journey started from there to the technology. So it was simply me trying to get to understand more and more how the world functions and how the world is going to move going forward. And that's how I started on this role. As I had mentioned, I have a bit of a background in mathematics, but I ended up within the data science space because it was a place where I could practically apply the mathematics instead of just thinking about it in terms of formulas and other things in a textbook. In data science, it's the real actual applications of the mathematics that you learn.
Wow, I think I mean, sitting from where I'm sitting and understanding where Ivory Park is and understanding again, I mean, the kind of setup that is there, and hearing you talking about mathematics and your love for mathematics, and here you talk about data scientist, which is something that some of us dreams about, to call ourselves family that I'm a data scientist. It actually makes me to realize that life is really not into the other side of maybe saying that I'm disadvantaged, but it actually tells me that actual life is about what you see yourself being and what you really want to be in life. And I'm gonna just dive down to Sibusiso. You know, Sibu, some of the people think like China is something that is very far. And when they think of China, they think like, hey, you know, I wonder, I mean, where is China? What is it all about? And all those parts. I know that you are joining us all the way from China today, and I mean, this is where you're stationed currently. This is where you are pursuing your PhD, and this is where you are learning some things that again we hear about them on TV. If it's not Professor Mulawa talking about them, you are actually doing practicality all around this and learning from the best currently in the world. Let's give it as to us. I mean, who's Sibusiso? I mean, how come this Sibusiso guy? Where did he grow up? How did he end up where he is today? And I mean, what are actually all the foundational things that Sibusiso have gone through to be in China and doing his PhD? And what is his PhD all about? I mean, what are you specializing on in your PhD? Sibu, over to you, Baba.
I'll be mixing, obviously, the English and isiZulu, using the advantage that your platform is already linked to Ukhozi FM. So already, I think we'll be also adding towards the data that is going to be mined in a language here, so that some of the things that are not misunderstood or they are not lost while we are saying. Sibusiso is same as Siphiwe and Joburg. In fact, mina no Siphiwe, we studied in the same primary school at Impopoma Primary School at some point, but I angazi ukuthi kwayenzakalani agcine sekehamba, you know. Then I went to Gianna Secondary School. Bebeyazi ukuthi is corrupt, you know. I was running away from Qinisweni because Qinisweni, it used to have those students who like to speak English. So I never liked the language, in fact, from a long time, in fact, you know. So I pursued mathematics and science. Then I went to UJ, I did my electrical engineering. Up until master's level, I was working at City Power, up until to senior energy advisor level. Then I resigned, getting an opportunity and given these ideals by my supervisor, who currently is a Dean of Engineering, Professor Twala at DUT, together with Professor Chilizi Marwala, who's currently the Vice Chancellor at University of Johannesburg, showing me this fourth industrial revolution is ozangani, why kumele siyenze, and why should I choose the east side of things. And I think it gives me an advantage learning from a different culture in a level that in South Africa, in fact, I was groomed in a westernized level of things on etiquette, things like that, and culture. But in the eastern side now, I have to learn different things, and I'm focusing on mitigating wildlife animals, poaching. As you know, that it's a big space that is vulnerable. Particularly, I'm looking at in a broader space of things, video surveillance, and I'm using multimedia data mining. The video that we're using is part of the videos that I'm trying to mine them and trying to learn the behavior, all the composition of it, extracting features, excuse me, how can we understand the behavior? How can we understand the invader if there is that invader in that level? I think in that short, and most of our ezisincourageayo ziyafana ukuthi asafuni ukuthi basibiza abafana basemkhukhwini. So the only thing, it was education, but hey, it's key. Then yeah, we start to study. I thank you there.
It's very interesting. You have said so many things that I think majority of us would be kind of like a little bit confused when you hear them for the first time. And I think this is why I kind of like put together this conversation, because you're talking about video mining, data mining, you're talking about the part around the video surveillance. I mean, which is, we know civilians in some of our language in terms of where we're coming from in our history. When you're being civilian, we think that, somebody, we are land. And the other thing that like, yeah, and in other countries, they call the big brother is watching. And the other part that I like about your conversation, you're saying, I mean, Abafana EMkhukhwini, and this is one of the parts that has followed you and things that you kind of like wanted to get rid of as not a stigma, but as a reality that shows that maybe the background, but is not the future of where you are and what you can be. And I think I want us to maybe to deep dive a little bit around the advice that you say you got from some of the key people within the academia around pursuing and following the fourth industrial revolution as your study. How did it sound like? I mean, again, Umfana EMkhukhwini, fourth industrial revolution, and again, the East, because that's the thing I want angle, that triangle, I want to draw it correctly. Umfana EMkhukhwini, somebody talk about the fourth industrial revolution when you're still battling with the second one and not even understanding what it's all about. And then two, again, pursuing your academia within the East, being in China versus being in America, where everybody would have assumed that given an opportunity would have ran into pursuing that level 11. How does the story come together, that angle?
Sorry, comrades. Sandile, it's Comrade Prabir. I'm going to put my video on so you see me. I'm sorry to join late. And I only see there's only 5 participants, but I'm very interested in the discussion around 4IR. And I'll stay into the meeting until such time you tell us to leave. I'm sorry to the other comrades before they intervene. Just on the issue of language, you must understand that I'm retarded a bit with regards to the vernacular. So if we could...
we have 11 official languages. not in an arrogant level. Not in an arrogant level. In fact, what you're saying is interesting because I think as we're in South Africa, even now we're utilizing English. And when I came here in China, Chinese does not mean that they don't understand English. They know English, but they are very firm on their language because they understand the power of the language. But I understand what you are saying. And as I've said earlier, that is this show of Sandile is also blended also with Ukhozi FM. Hence, that's why I'm saying that I'll be mixing so that we can at least cover different communities. But I will make sure that I say it also in English.
Good.
Sure. So coming back to the question, Sandile, in fact, it is funny that while I was doing my master's, I was reading one of the papers that talks about algorithms of fuzzy. So I asked my professor, you know, there was also another, he had a PhD student who was a lecturer at Val. And I said to him, hey, Baba, what is this fuzzy? I used to call it fuzzy, you know, the fuzzy logic. So yeah, he laughed at me and he made jokes about this fuzzy. And I used to see this word from the washing machine back at home, and it shows that logic. But I asked, and when I asked, they explained to me these particular algorithms. Then I said, in this level, there is a problem in rural areas. So I want to dive in the financial services. You'll find in rural areas that you want to sell a cow. While you want to sell that particular cow, you have to lose the money already when looking at the transport, going to deposit the money to the bank at the town, and it's expensive. So I was saying that because there's no this financial infrastructure and there's no connection, how can we solve this particular problem? So my supervisor then and prof, they told me that no, in fact, this is a fourth industrial revolution. We can utilize artificial intelligence in the digital space of things, in the text mining and things like that. I've started to read about those things. And when I came here, that was my first proposal to try to solve. I think also I had an idea that at some point when I come back, I'll open a bank, because I was looking at the financial services things. But I ended up changing the topic because one, I found a supervisor that is articulative when coming to English. So I didn't want to have a problem with my supervisor, you know, and he was in the space of video surveillance. So I said, okay, there's also another problem, you know, because he was saying that I can find you another supervisor if you are interested in this. I said, okay, it's fine. There's also another problem. There's a problem of poaching animals. So we started to discuss this and we started to have that interest. But there's a problem already within those particular fields because it's not easy to get data. And sometimes when you communicate with government officials, we don't understand each other. And I understand that the field that I'm researching, it's a sensitive data that I want. It will need different ministerial signatures up until to the president, because it is found as a threatened animals in the country. So it's not easy that you can find that data. Currently, I'm mining them from internet and the videos. So it is going to be an algorithm that it is tested in a small scale, but from a different level. It is not going to be an information that I've mined it from a real life, that I'm taking these videos from back at home. And this is what I want to pursue, obviously, when furthering this research, because it's an interesting research, particularly in the crime that are happening also in the country, the video surveillance, because you need to understand these behaviors of people. You need to understand if there's an invader. Invader is umuntu lona ongafuneki in that particular space that is protected, you know. So that's the level that I ended up in this particular space.
One thing that I just want to maybe give a background to the guys. I mean, you have joined us on Zoom and people who are on Facebook. By the way, we are hitting a very interesting attendance within Facebook too. It's just maybe clear the line of, we're currently talking to Siphiwe Ngwenya, who is currently in Johannesburg, and Sibusiso Bakana, who is currently in China doing his PhD. Siphiwe runs a company that actually works within the fourth industrial revolution. I mean, I would say industry. And again, he's a data scientist, and he more or less run and strive on data and being able to create what Bakana is busy talking about as your algorithm, writing some of the languages that are able to study data and give some insight around some of the things that you can use data for, and some of the things that data actually can be able to utilize for projection or prediction and moving forward in some of the things. And on the other side, Sibusiso is more or less, I mean, in China, studying, doing his PhD, focusing a lot around this research, which is more or less around utilizing data and utilizing different kind of data sets for the purposes of protection and for the purposes of civilian, predictions and kind of different things. This is more or less how advanced life has been within this kind of marketing term called the fourth industrial revolution. And what I'm going to try and do just to make sure I'm being accommodative to everybody who might not understand what we're talking about. I want us to move it down into a cards, where we were born, because I think for me, if ever we can really pin down a clear conversation around how the advance of the fourth industrial revolution will transform Ivory Park. Okay, how it's going to transform Unongoma, where I'm very prevalent in, or Umlazi, the township where I grew up. What are the opportunities thereof? Because remember, everybody, when they talk about the fourth industrial revolution, they tell us about robots, they tell us about 5G, they tell us about all the things that sometimes we interpret it and we think, oops, that means I might not be able to get a job. I want us to map it up down into a level of how can you solve some of the society problem. I mean, I know your background very well, Sbu, and I know Siphiwe's background. You guys are very good activists politically, and you understand the triple things that we are faced with when it comes to poverty, unemployment, and within the locations and places where we grow up. I want us to move it back. How does the introduction of these particular new ways of doing things gonna start transforming the reality on the ground in our township, in the rural areas, in some of the informal settlement? How do we utilize the knowledge of maths and the understanding of maths to be able to form solutions that are gonna transform the places where we were born? I want us just to move into that conversation a little bit so that I know the people who are joining us, they kind of find a relevance in this conversation, and they start understanding that we are not trying to talk Sentin life. We're not trying to take Umhlanga life. We're actually talking the very same language of being in Alexandra, being in Ivory Park, being in Mahlabatini, being in Mlazi, but being able to utilize technology to start unveiling what could be possible. I want us to have that conversation, but I want us to maybe come up with a background of why should I be then studying things that are relevant towards it? Why should I be bothering myself about maths as the real maths? And why should I bother myself to understand some of the foundational things of education that makes me to be articulative and be able to come up one day like yourself, as Sibusiso saying, you know what, I'm going to go and study in China because I'm going to go and get some of the things. I'll start with you, Sbu, and I'll move into Siphiwe afterwards. Give us with all the things I've said, I want us just to move in that mode of, today you are in Ivory Park, and now we are actually meeting some of the comrades you have grown up with, some people you have grown up with. What conversation can you have in the back foot of the fact that now you are studying and you are doing things in advanced technology? How do we really come and have this conversation at that level?
Thanks, Prasandil. One is that from the experience of this culture that I've learned in China, obviously I will suggest that probably we need to look also in this fourth industrial revolution in an Ubuntuism ideology. I think we need to highlight that because we need to have solutions that are Africanized. There is a particular paper that is not yet published, but they are still writing, Professor Marwala and some of the academians, about the Ulimisana optimization algorithm. It is based on that Ubuntuism also, on how can we try to solve other problems when using the Ulimisana. You know, in the previously, we used to assist, families used to assist each other, and it was an Ubuntu ideology. And I'll come back to the language as Prabir was also saying that he is having a problem. A language is also a crucial issue when trying to mine this data. And we need to clarify the data that we're talking about. We're not talking about the data based on connectivity here. We're talking about the data as information that we are going to find patterns that, for an example, sometimes we look outside on the sky and we see a big blackish cloud, and we start to predict that, okay, there are chances that it is going to rain, or there are chances that the rain is going to be heavy today. And we're using statistical methods to predict those particular levels. But we're very smart because we're humans, we're smarter than machines. We use that in a wink of an eye. So in an advice, in a level that, how can we do this? I will say that, one, we need to make mathematics compulsory and scrape away the mathematical literacy. I don't think mathematical literacy can assist us in this particular conversation. That's the first thing. And we need to make it fashionable, obviously. We need to bring art on it. So we need to move, as the Chinese are moving, are working on a STEAM, the science, technology, engineering, art, and what is M again? You'll remind me, you know? So
M stand for maths, Baba. It's
yes, mathematics. So we need also art in this particular space. In a level that we have indigenous games that are not making large strides when coming to economical space of things. We have those guys who are selling fruit on us, and we define it as a local economy in eMkhukhwini, you know. I think in the future we might buy those vegetables through online. So we need to start to familiarize ourselves when coming to build solutions that we can have an e-commerce level. I will give you an example. Since I've been here, probably I withdraw the first month when I came here. I never withdrew. I'm using a WeChat application. It's a Chinese base. You can also use money on it. It's connected to your bank. So we need to have those sound systems that are there. But also we can go further, Sandile, because in the country we're talking about the expropriation of land. So in the expropriation of land, it means that now we need to farm. And if we're participating in the farming, it means that the future, we are going to have driverless tractors. Again, this is part of the space that we're at. While we are farming, we need to understand the soil, whether it is rich. We need to, there are solutions that are already there in Germany. I know that there are particular projects. I'm not sure in other countries, but they might be there. Just I read about Germany. You know that pets like grasshoppers, they eat the fruit or whatever you're planting in your farms, and it already takes the profit. It takes away the profit. Obviously, from the environmentalist, it's not that it's taking the profit. It's part of the cycle. Ecosystem has to balance. But you have to look at those particular things. That how can we solve? How can we manage, or how can we protect this particular space? And this is part of the detection. Is part of the classifications of things. Is part of the analyzing the invader. If there's an invader, is part of understanding the behavior of all of these things. So, for an example, there's an AlphaGo, and I think everyone knows about it. That now the machine, based on the Turing methods, it won against the world champion of the AlphaGo, and the AlphaGo is like a Chinese chess method that is very strategically though, because it's based on protecting the territory. So we've got also Umrabaraba, our indigenous games. We've got Ingeto, the girls when they're playing when they're young. How can we then blend that? Because we need to have a localized thing using our own data, our own information. I will give you an example again when coming to the speech recognition, and I don't want to talk much because I think it's a space of Siphiwe, that one. In the level that you find a lot of these online lectures that are happening around the country, and it shows the way the algorithm that it is being used. It is not it is biased to the West. It's not biased to us. In the level that it does not understand my English. Firstly, it's used to a particular tones of English, a particular rhythm when it is spoken, this language. And you'll find that when now it is translated, the words that are used there when people are busy talking, it is misquoting these particular people. You go further in the mapping directions of your Google map. When you want a direction, you want to go to Badal, it won't say Badal, it will say Badal, you know, because it is not you, it is not talking to you. So we need more Siphiwe Ngwenyas, you know, those data scientists back in Ivory Park that are going to be much love in mathematics, If they are not in love, we need teachers that are going to make sure that this mathematics it has a particular style and students are having a buy-in. Because we're not going to have anything if we don't have mathematics. Fourth industrial revolution is based on algorithms, and algorithms are mathematics. Thank you.
And I think you bridged it nicely, because Siphiwe, I wanted him to get in this particular part. Siphiwe, how do we wake up more? Where are the Siphiwes in Ivory Park? How do we wake up more Siphiwes who are going to be data scientists? How do we really link up and build up our data that can be mined, can be able to start really defining how Africa plays the role in this one? Siphiwe, I need to see you because I don't see you in, so I wanted to see you.
Thank you.
And you can talk for me. Okay, Baba.
No, I'm here. I just switched off video, thinking in mind bandwidth. So let's try and keep the bandwidth so at least you can hear as much as possible.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
So I would say how do we get young people involved? I would say first and foremost you need to contextualize. So so you are solving a problem that is not directly my problem. So you've taken a solution that is pre-built from the United States of America, which is what a lot of IT companies in South Africa do, by the way. They just pick it up and they dump it in the middle of South Africa and they expect that solution to keep working the same way. And unfortunately, this doesn't work. And you will see this in numbers in how people uptake technology in South Africa and things like that, because you've not contextualized it correctly so that the person from Soweto is able to interact with the technology without any friction. So the first thing that we must do is we must be able to contextualize these problems and be able to give it to me in a Soweto way. Then in that way, I begin to understand. So you contextualize, you localize. This is a design philosophy that we use when we build chatbots at Nike Technologies. We build quite a significant number of chatbots. And every time when you do that, first and foremost, you consider language. You put yourself in the position of the person that is going to be interacting with this automated system. Now, a person who interacts with an automated system will either, number one, use a particular language, or there'll be certain hidden semantics within the language. So you need to be able to build solutions that will understand across the board, because South Africa is unlike the United States of America, which only has, I think, about 2 official languages. We have about 11. So whenever you are writing programs, you constantly need to be thinking that, but a vendor person is going to interact with this, a Tswana person is going to interact with this. And therefore your interactions can't be built based on an algorithm that was built by Google, which is the point that Sibusiso was trying to make. So that is happening because we've not localized the solutions. The algorithms, the mathematics will remain the same for whatever language that you use. It is merely a ranking system. So from what Sibusiso was saying, let me contextualize it and localize it so that someone who's sitting at home can understand. Fuzzy logic algorithms are used on your cell phone when we are trying to determine what you are trying to say. So when you are typing on your cell phone and saying, I am going, and then your cell phone suggests the word mall, né? Or you've half typed the word and suddenly your computer finishes the word. It is using a simple algorithm, fuzzy logic. It is ranking the number of words that you might be able to put within that particular position so that the sentence makes sense. Fuzzy logic, we assign a probability to the word that there's a 70% probability that you are about to say this, therefore it's the word that I'm going to suggest to you. The logic is fuzzy because we are suggesting the one that has the highest ranking within the algorithm. It's very simple mathematics when I start explaining it. So there's another one that they do in data science, are these companies that they'll go out there and they'll charge you 50 million rand and they'll tell you that they'll analyze data from Twitter. So this is what they'll do. Go there and you'll scrape the data from Twitter using, of course, their backend API. Once you've done this, you have access to search Twitter maybe for a specific word if you wanted to search for GoDigitalSA. Now, once we found every tweet that has happened about GoDigitalSA on Twitter, we go to the body of the text. Once we're at the body of the text, this is really simple Python libraries. You can then choose to find out what topics that people are talking about within GoDigitalSA. And this is a very simple algorithm as well, term frequency. We are looking at the number of times you are saying a combination of words within a certain body of text, and that is going to tell us what topic you are talking about. So if you keep saying soccer, 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 and the word soccer emerges within the body of text multiple times, clearly the topic of discussion within that is soccer. And this is the insights that people then bring back to you. It doesn't require a human being to be sitting down and reading 5,000 tweets. An algorithm can simply do this in a space of 10 seconds, and it tells us what people are saying about a particular brand. So let me bring it to the township here, and hopefully I'm not talking too much. This is what it's going to bring to us in the township. So imagine Sandile Mahlaba sells kotas in Swaziland. Now, Sandile Mahlaba can only have one shop in Swaziland. So it means geographically, Sandile Mahlaba is locked within that space, because the second I'm 500 meters or I'm a kilometer away from Sandile Mahlaba, I'm not going to go to his shop. I'm going to look for one that is closer to me. So imagine if we could build Sandile Mahlaba a WhatsApp chatbot that is able to interact with his customers, take orders, and then be able to dispatch the orders to the people that have placed these orders via WhatsApp. Suddenly, we have opened up a spaza shop that was able to service about 100 people a day to easily thousands of people. And you've automated this entire system, so the only thing that Sandile worries about is the fact that he must be producing quality quotas. And this is what the fourth industrial revolution is. ShopRite is able to leverage and make billions of rands simply because they have a large footprint. But suddenly, you do not need to have a massive footprint like ShopRite and Checkers. You can only have one store and be able to service millions of people. And this is simply what Amazon does. Amazon doesn't have such a large footprint. They have very large warehouses in very specific places in the world. But because their network and infrastructure is so automated, they're able to reach millions and millions of people across the globe without doing much. So when we say the fourth industrial revolution, it is about automating these systems to allow the business people to be able to focus on the business and not worry about the small nitty-gritties. So we automate the nitty-gritties so that we focus on the quality of the products and are able to deliver them with far better efficiency. So in Malokshini, how I see the fourth industrial revolution assisting young people, especially accessing the economy, is exactly that. Suddenly, a young man who sells quarters in Alexander can be selling quarters to anyone within the Gauteng province if we are simply just able to connect the dots.
Let me give it up in terms of what I've been working on in KwaZulu-Natal, by the way, around the very same concept, because I think you would have thought that KwaZulu-Natal, and then you would think I should be maybe, I mean, what? I don't know. I mean, I'm selling the beach and making sure people can be able to come here and understand where things are. We're trying to have a concept where umama, yabona umama Mhlongo, who is in KwaNongoma. Umama Mhlongo KwaNongoma, every time when he does that clear pot, a very nice one, very individually made and very artistically done, very nicely crafted. One thing that has been a cry is, Umama Mhlongo, because of no access to market, kuzofika somebody ohlala eMhlanga or ohlala in Westville or somewhere and say, Mama Mhlongo, how much are you selling this? I think, Mama, it's 50 rand. I'm just making an example. And then from then I take it, because I appreciate art and I understand what it is, I then write a story of Mama Mhlongo on this particular, linking this particular clear pot into Mama Mhlongo. Write a nice story, put it on a website, make sure that it's connected with art as a part of pulling algorithm, and be able to make sure that I tag it with all the famous words that are there on Twitter, everywhere else, and then be able to say, you know what, we can only solve poverty if we support people who are with us. And then from there on, sell it for 2,000 rand. Remember, I bought it for 50 rand to Mama Mhlongo. I've told her story. She's not there. I now profit from it. I don't know how many percentage above whatever I would have actually been able to. And I never go back to Mama Mhlongo and say, because I sold it for 2,000 rand, here's the 1,000 rand because I told your story. And it was you who made it clear. And people bought it in America because I told the story. Now we're actually going to a level of going to KwaNongoma and taking Ganega Mama Mhlongo. Let's teach you Mangana Mama Mhlongo. How do you work with a website? How do you do an online shop? How do you open up Mama Mhlongo art craft trading shop online? So that I, sitting in America, I'm no longer going to be told by somebody else who's sitting sentient about Mama Mhlongo. I can talk to her. I can look at her in a video when she creates the clay, put the coloring around it, mixing the colors not from the color of paint that she has bought, but from the original colors of a soil and different things when she's making the clay. Up until to a level, she completes it. She writes her own story in Zulu, utilizing algorithms that Sibusiso and Siphiwe are currently doing from our original language to interpret it to English, to Chinese, to Italian, or anything else, so that that market is open up for Umama Mhlonge originally to be able to sell her pot directly. Here's the last one. When that is done, there is Nganega Gumete in the next door in Kwanongoma. The minute Umama Mhlongo get a buyer, now this needs to be shipped up. Inganega Gumete got a car. He then becomes the Uber, whatever we know today, or Take a Lot concept, that's going to transport this player into the airport, ship it and pack it so that it can go and hit the market in the US to Mr. Smith in the US, who have bought it online from Umama Mhlongo's shop. That is actually a shop that is originally from home, created by Ngani Yake Kwanongoma. This is the fourth industrial revolution in Kwanongoma. This is the fourth industrial revolution in a rural area that we should be talking about. And this is how we're creating new jobs, because Nganeka Kumete would have never been able to transport anything to the airport unless it was given an opportunity. And I want us to actually understand that within the fourth industrial revolution, it's not something clouded around privilege. It's not something clouded around better, but it's something that's clouded within the will of the people, and people educating and working and partnering with each other and doing things. Can you imagine the power of a stock failure being done online? The power of stock failure becoming a new online bank. And again, Praveen, I think I want to bring you into this, by the way, Praveen. Can you imagine within the people that we've got in participating in our unions, participating in our organization, participating in our churches, if all the amount of participation we have, if we group it together and becomes a new data I can mine today, how much power can we have as the people? The fourth industrial revolution is just 5% of the 95% power that we already have and that we already settled for. I think for me, in this conversation, I want us to start layering the fact that what is it that we have today that you can use? How many of the active people that we see every day, how can you use and leverage that? The conversation, how do we minimize technology in the conversation, maximize the power of the people into the conversation? I don't know if you've got any insight. I know you're not just a guest in my part, but I would like to have your insight because we've got the privilege of being with us in the same platform.
No, you're very correct in what you're saying, and I must appreciate the input by Comrades Siphiwe and Sibusiso around the issues that they've raised. I'm currently involved in trying to set up an AVR training school on coding and application development, and and I'm trying to get all of Sandile, Comrade Sandile, because. But unfortunately, he has migrated back to KZN, and I've migrated to Gauteng. So we don't get to see each other, unfortunately, lockdown. But I just want to make a point what you're raising around the collective, what we call the captive market in financial services terms. So if you look at the trade union movement, you look at the Stokvels, et cetera, and the township economy itself. In about 2009, 2010, we developed a paper there at Kosatsu Investment Company, Kopana Kematla, around how we can drive. So Comrade Siphiwe refers to how ShopRite gets the advantage of a market of the marketplace, and how Amazon has become the largest and what's his name, Jeff Bezos, has become the richest man in the world as a result of a captive market using 4IR. But way back in about 2008, 2009, we had people, when we were going to buy a stake in Eubank at the time, it was called Teba Bank. We developed a paper around this thing called the captive market. Comrade Siphiwe and Comrade Ruben, I really, really, value the input, I mean, individually, right, that you've made with regards to what you're referring to, how we can transform the township economy. For me, I mean, having engaged with some of the comrades in Gauteng province when we were talking about reviving the township economy, I think it was all talk and no sense of direction, no clarity, no idea of what they envision the township economy to be. So when you refer to Mama in Ngoma that makes clay pots, and Gauteng was looking at probably the man, Comrade Siphiwe, that was selling potatoes in the corner of the street. You know, you're not going to take that concept overseas, but you are definitely going to take the concept of if there's 500 people buying and selling potatoes on the corner of the street on Nelson Mandela Drive, for example, just to use the name because of the day today, you know, 4IR becomes and artificial intelligence becomes a very key and critical component to how we develop a market for people to firstly source goods and how they then distribute the goods. I don't want to bore you with some of the experiences that I've been through over the last 10 years, but just to tell you one thing, comrades, and maybe Comrades Sibusiso, you might understand this. The Department of Trade and Industry spent about 400 million rand developing an electric car called the Jewel. I don't know if you're aware of it.
I'm aware.
Right? Today, you find that the same Joule technology is being used by DHL and everybody else in Cape Town, right? Funded by some Stellenbosch. This is South African taxpayers' money, right? The technology is now being funded at a sub-minimal cost by the monopoly capital of Stellenbosch to then drive, delivery vehicles, and suddenly claim that it's their invention and their conceptualization, etc. So we as Black people, we're always losing the opportunity because we focused on the money as opposed to focusing on taking the opportunity to another level. When you talk about mathematics, data analytics, the issue of language becomes critically important. As Comrade Siphiwe has indicated as well. And unfortunately, in the way we grew up, we were confined to just the one language, or maybe two, the other one being Afrikaans, which we rejected, and we don't speak. However, in my daughter's day and age, she's 14 years old, she's learning Zulu and Mandarin, you know? So at least she's learning one of the vernaculars, if I want to put it in colloquial terms, but at least she's learning it. So language becomes very critical to this. But I mean, there's so much we can share. You know, the other issue is the fact on education. And perhaps as we go into the discussions, I don't want to take up too much of time. As we go into the discussions, I'll raise my views on education and why we're finding ourselves in the situation we're finding ourselves in currently. Thank you, comrades.
Thank you. Thank you for contributing. I mean, I know I just got you off guard about that particular part. One of the other things which I wonder
before you pass, Comrade Sandy, can I say something?
Yes, you can.
Comrade Prabir, it is unfortunate that, you know, at times like this, I always meet Comrade Sandile, and there's someone that we know that we could have used or that can assist us to get certain things moving. And I'm so glad you spoke about COSATU, because you see, to get some of these things rolling, you actually do need people who have significant influence and things like that. Because you see, for young people like us, sometimes we feel as though when we start talking about technology and how we feel our people should invest in it, we think we are genuinely talking to people who don't want to listen to us. But it breaks my heart that you are talking about the jewel like that, and the technology is going to be exploited in Cape Town. But guys, honestly speaking, electric cars are going to be the next revolution on the African continent. I promise you, within the next year, Tesla Motor Vehicles is going to announce building a gigafactory somewhere on the African continent. If as a country we are not getting ahead of it, we are simply going to be following. And this breaks my heart because we have the capacity and the capability. The research is there at the CSIR. The only thing that the government has to do is open up these channels so young entrepreneurs can enter those spaces and are able to produce these things because the technology and the capacity exists within our nation. I'm sorry for preaching.
No, I think for me now the reality is hitting home, and you guys are starting now to talk the language I was looking for. knowing all the individuals in this call, in this conversation, and knowing exactly what you guys do and what you've done in your life to achieve the things you have achieved. The reality of the matter, it's really not about some time about the fourth industrial revolution. The reality of the matter is really sometimes not about, let me think about it, it's not about not knowing what to do. I think the reality of the matter is about us not using what we have. We put it very nicely, and Praveen, that's why I liked your contribution a lot. And I mean, Sibusiso, and I like your contribution a lot, and Siphiwe. We are not using the fact that we're actually connected to all of us somehow, other than through government, other than through the current economic arrangement that is here. Somehow, somewhere, as African people, somehow, somewhere, people living in this continent, there are spiritual things that connect us. If it's not political connections that we've got, if it's not relationships and being related relatives that is connected. I think for me, this is where I wanted us to pitch the conversation. I love the fact that now we've moved there, where we're saying, by the fact that I'm active and I'm involved in a church A, or by the way I'm active politically and I'm involved in church B politically, what is it that I've got home that I can start from and be able to infuse my knowledge and my understanding? Can you imagine? Let me make an example. Sibusiso currently is busy exploring around the artificial intelligence using video surveillance and being able to be able to protect the enemy that is endangered, while it can protect the country that can be invaded, while it can protect the crime that can actually expand within an area of eMkhukhwini because of the game farms they've got, or any other places. Why is he struggling to get access into data that is got camera surveillance everywhere? Every game farm I know of, they've got a camera surveillance. Okay? Any kind of freeway that we've got in this country, in South Africa, we've got a camera surveillance on it. And I know that with his being active in some of the political party might be active on, people who might make this decision, they are not far ahead from wherever he is. He's in China pursuing PhD, a very specialized free PhD. If he passes it and finishes, he comes back in the country, come up with a new economic concept that can change and revolutionize how we do public safety and how we're doing the protection of endangered species and how we're actually able to protect our borders from invasion. How come this young man can suffer from a video, a feat that can actually give him to actually study his real feature of the face of a black person, feature of a face of the people in his country? How come this young man cannot actually get access to video, to voice of the original language, so that he can farm a correct language of analysis, so that when he writes and interprets language from speech into text, it could actually take some dialect of an African person speaking and be able to interpret it correctly. This is the part that I think for me, in such sessions, I always get privileged when I actually accommodate people to come and talk to us, because we need not to look at fourth industrial revolution as a new problem that we have in our country. I think it's a new privilege that we should be using to actually be able to get ourselves in an advanced stage. Sibusiso, I've spoken on your behalf on a lot of things, and I know you've got some opinion around this thing. How do we really now, going forward, really restructure our thinking? How do we really think? Because I always say, Praveen, one of the problem I have, because I'm involved in a lot of activism work I do, other than my work that I do every day, how do I really shape up a teacher of the future or a teacher of current with the future in mind? How do I shape up a lecture of the current with the future in mind? Because I want us to dive into that because I mean, I was saying to you earlier on when we had the conversation in preparation with the team, my biggest problem I have, mathematics is not difficult. Why do I know it's not difficult? When I'm walking towards a door, I can calculate in my mind without physically doing how many steps I'm going to take before I reach out to the door and open it. That is mathematics. How come in our value system and education system, we don't portray maths as a norm of every day? How come in a value system and in the education system, we don't project what probabilities of statistics because we know it's gonna rain if ever there's too much of the cloud? How do we fuse it back? Sbu, I want you to give an insight on it. Siphiwe, and then probably, I mean, you might have some insight to add and contribute towards this. I want us just to talk about how do we really change this chain? How do we make kids not to think about teacher Mhlongo or teacher Naidu, might have their own limitation, but to think about this as a normal things and normal way of doing things. I will just take for myself and take Siphiwe and then take Prabin before we wrap up.
Thanks, Sandile. I think firstly, let's welcome the currently, can you hear me? Okay.
Loud and clear, Bob. Loud and clear.
Yes,
Right.
we can hear you.
I think firstly, let's take the opportunity that one, there is already a draft that is out from the National Development Plan and is closing on the 27th of this month. Let's participate on it. And while I read it, I have a lot of critics on that document. So let's work on it. Let's participate. Let's find a document that also speaks about youth, because this the current majority, it's young people that constitute the population of the country. I think that's the one point that I need to raise. Let's participate. There's, in fact, Prabir, the element in Gauteng, not that I'm defending the Gauteng province, you know. You'll check in the Gauteng province government, there is also an e-commerce department that deals with that in the finance level. Probably is there now is the infusing and the participation, because that e-commerce speaks about the future mall, the one that Siphiwe and yourself are talking about, like Alibaba, as you mentioned, Amazon, because it seems like you're looking at the Americans, I'm looking at the Chinese, I'm going to give an example of Alibaba. so it's like it's a future mall, because it is not that, and it is responding to what Sandile is saying. It is not that we need specifically the Mamhlongo to understand technology. We just need one to infuse this system, to have the intellectual property also to be in place, because we need to protect these particular IPs levels. So in that particular space, it brings what Prabir is saying, that is also in the distribution level, because how many, we don't need even cars, Sandile. How many scooters can be traveling as part of the postural things when coming to do these things? And in that, it gives us an advantage now in developing an app of ordering, and also it gives us an advantage in collecting the data on what kind of a order that is being ordered in this particular stand, and then we can summarize and know that in this particular stand, these are the particular services that they want, because it is based on us, on learning also on the experiment to predict what it is going to be needed in that particular phase. And obviously, the another point is the one that is in my heart. Mathematics needs to be compulsory, comrades. You know, we are not going to go anywhere without mathematics. It is algorithms. So we need to, firstly, because one, for you to move from one grade to another grade, you need to have your vernacular language. Okay, I'm going to talk from a point of view from a public school that I went to. You need a vernacular language and an English language as a second language for you to pass. Probably we need to add, we need mathematics. For these two languages, they don't say you need to have 70% for you to pass. No, in fact, South Africa is better than China. Pass mark is 50. Here is 60. You know, so you just say we need 3 now languages. We add mathematics, and then we scrap mathematical literacy. There's no, from my point of view, there's no use for mathematical literacy, so that it can cover us, because at the end of the day, these departments, they should be interlinked. At the end of, we are going to discover, in fact, robots that, or in fact, other researchers are already based on that, robots that are in the law space that are going to predict cases now. We're not talking about things that are only of the services that is about eating or getting clothes. It's all about, it cuts across all the services that we want, in the agriculture, in the transportation, as we mentioned earlier, in the law space, that as we mentioned. So we need an interlinked departments. If you are doing history, do mathematics. If you are doing sociology as part of the history, natural science and social science, they're going to be the same things. In fact, we need to cut across, in fact, all of the things. In fact, you need to, across all the things, we need mathematics. And lastly, let's localize, obviously, as part of the questions that you've said. I think I'm going to echo what we've already said earlier, as you are saying that you are closing. We need to localize. We need to have our own, our solutions that are solving our own problems. Just imagine that if probably we were already advanced in this particular space, because I remember in 2011, the government was very vocal about the green economy. What is happening now? What about those guys that are doing the recycling, because they're the backbone of the green economy? Are they covered? Who is advocating for that? Or are we also using them to pocket for us? It is going to be the same also, because the economical system of anything, it is racial. So we're talking about this now, we're in the discussion. Other groups are not discussing, they're implementing, in fact. They are collecting their own data and using these algorithms to solve their real life problems. So the artificial intelligence applications in my closing, it is all about cooperation. We need to cooperate to departments, and departments, they need to understand what is happening there and what is happening. I'll give you a joke as I'm closing. There was a bursary advert that was out. I don't want to say about which department in the government of South Africa. And it says that they're giving out bursaries to people who will be doing bachelors in robotics. Which institution that does robotics? Because we understand robotics is a specialty. If ever probably are doing electrical engineering, you'll do the specialty. But it shows that our leaders, they're using the word to charm, so that I think in the next conferences, there's going to be a faction that is the fourth industrial faction, this one, the one that is looking at the future. Thank you.
It's very nice to hear some of the realities being spoken here. Siphiwe, what do you say on your side?
That was a very controversial closing, but I agree. I think we must also begin to understand where we are. So maybe you'll agree with me on this one. So the city of Johannesburg is hosting an innovation competition. This is something that they're currently doing. In the list of requirements that they have there, it states that you can't apply to do this competition if the address that you reside on actually owes municipal rates. And I was sitting and I was thinking about it yesterday, but most of the people that I know that live in the township owe municipal rates. So in essence, what you've told young people who come across from Johannesburg is that if you live in any township, if your parents are unemployed or there's that kind of situation in the city of Johannesburg, you can't be an innovator. That is a wrong message to be sending to young people. So I think, number one, we need to start understanding in which country we live in. Stop going and fetching policies from America and the Netherlands and trying to deliver them here. It's not how it is in South Africa. There's young people who live in informal settlements that might have brilliant solutions, but will not get an opportunity simply because they don't have municipal rates. So I take it there, number one. We need to understand where we are as we are trying to solve these problems, because it's that thing. It's like we don't know where we are. Okay, so secondly, to be able to move forward in technology, this is something we've not touched on. China invests massively in technology. We are not talking that they're going to spend 2 billion and give it to the Department of Science and Technology. You have a space agency and their budget is 300 million rand. So the only thing that they can do is rent a ship and go to the Antarctic and run space research there. To which is disappointing, because in 1989, if you don't know, South Africa had a joint program with the Israel government where they built rockets and they attempted to shoot them to space. 2 weeks ago, the Israelites shot a Shavi 2 rocket into space and it delivered a satellite the same technology that they use. The South Africans helped them develop it, but South Africa today doesn't have a space program that even sends up one single satellite, and we claim we want.
No, we're coming. There's a scar. There's a scar. There's a scar. Don't talk bad about our country. There's a scar.
Yeah. So I was gonna say, by the way, I know that there's a NINOS satellite launch that we done last year from the CSIR, and I actually had the privilege of seeing them. But by the way, having said that, I do accept and agree with you, Siphiwe. The amount of investment that you are doing within the advanced part, it might not be really be of significant into where we are going as an African next economy in the world. By the way, Professor Mororo has joined us, by the way, from Facebook side, and is listening to some of these good students of his talking about what he taught them and how he said it. I want just to acknowledge him on that particular part, and other people who are currently on Facebook. I mean, there's got a list of people who are actually listening to this. So, Siphiwe, as you're closing up, I wanted just to move into that part.
As I close, I want to sort of pose the challenge to Prabir. At the beginning of his statement, he said he's been looking for Sandile because he wants to work in the technology space. It's a space that I'm particularly passionate about, and you said you are in Gauteng, and I'm equally in Gauteng. Maybe beyond this, Comrade Sandile can assist us to get together, and let's see how we can assist each other in assisting the ANC. Because beyond having conversations on Zoom and sitting for meetings, I think it was President Zuma in 2017 or 2018 who said we must stop having meetings for the sake of having meetings. Some meetings must be about implementation, not just discussing ideas. So maybe the next session, we must have feedback as to what we've done to try and move this agenda forward within Gauteng, because if we don't do it, no one else will. I think
Thank you very much, Prabir, because you're now part of my panel somehow. I would like you to just do your part of the contribution as we're wrapping up.
Sorry, I want to start on the negative first. Again, way back in 2008, 2009, I'd taken a proposal during the time when I was at the COSATU CEC, I'd taken a proposal to the teachers union to say to them, guys, listen, can we not use, because of the dearth of or the death of our teachers training colleges and finding a suitable means to transmit education to teachers and probably students themselves, especially in the public arena. There was I invited them to utilize some software that we had developed around teacher training development. And you know what they said to me at the time? No, you are going to, teachers are going to lose their jobs, right? Because I'm introducing technology into the system. Today we see the dire need for technology if that technology was introduced, if they accepted the technology then, and I'm not advocating that mine was the best technology. I mean, Professor Marwala is on Facebook. I mean, I had the privilege of going to his launch on the 4-hour program that he launched at UJ. And he's probably one of the most respected 4-hour advocates in this country. Ruben, without wanting to downplay your interventions as well as you're trying to make.
But you're not downplaying.
But the second point I want to make is that there lies a huge opportunity. There was a program run by the Tshwane municipality, and unfortunately, when the DA took over, it killed that AVR augmented and virtual reality program in Tshwane. Now these were young black kids, and I'm calling them kids because I'm 50 years old, by the way, right? And Sandile will have a party sometime. But be that as it may, I'm 50 years old, and these were kids that came out of TUT and universities that never had jobs, right? So effectively, they were on the street, the Ikasi boys, either selling those potatoes around the street corner just to make a livelihood. And you took them into a program, and where they developed, and one of the beauty parts of it is that they developed an augmented and virtual reality program and application for the Airbus 400E. Now, if you know the Airbus 400E is the largest plane in the world, right? It's a cargo plane, right? But they developed the wingtip, the electronics around the wingtip, so that it puts you in an immersed virtual and environment, so that you could do training and development on this, you know. And these were black kids from South Africa, comrades. You know, nobody will want to believe that. Nobody will want to believe that. When I saw the size of the wingtip, and I said, if these kids can do just the wings, they can design the plane. You know, so there's a lot of opportunity out there in the 4IR space. The one criticism I have is that I think the constitution of the presidential advisory team, or whatever you call it, some Comrades on 4IR is very skewed. It's very skewed towards business. It's very skewed to the very same people Siphiwe is negating around. It does not have civil society represented earnestly in that, because again, you're going to find that Siphiwe, because he lives in Ivory Park and cannot pay his rates, is excluded from it. You know, so the point of the matter is, we need a broader, a more proactive. We don't need to look solely at the commercial aspects of it. I mean, you got the CEO of Vodacom. You think he's worried about the 4IR and whether Comrade Sibusiso gets his PhD in mathematics and data analytics and different types of security systems? He's worried about the spectrum. He's worried about the spectrum that's about to be launched, and he's worried about how much he's going to get out of it. Now, again, the point I want to make, Comrade Sandile, is that if we don't secure enough spectrum, that the analog spectrum that's going to be launched soon for Black people, for the township economy, for the rural areas, it's no use me living in Somerset, in Midrand, because I can get Vodacom fiber. I can get telecom fiber, you know. It goes beyond that, comrades. It's got to target the right people, and it can't be just about the commercials. If it's not state-owned, if the spectrum is not state-owned and leased, we're going through auction now. My view is when you're going through an auction, it's going to be purchased. Professor Marwala may want to clarify that. However, the thing is, if the spectrum is not state-owned, and we can't say that the state is failing in all aspects, right? There's some things that we do darn bloody good, right? And we're not respected for it. The spectrum must be state-owned. It must be channeled to the areas that it needs to be channeled towards. I mean, in Limpopo, apparently there's some town in Limpopo where those students excel in mathematics and accounting. I think it's in some vendor town, Toyanda, if I'm not mistaken. Comrade Sandile, you know, we got to analyze those things. We got to provide those kids with the necessary tools so that they can exploit their knowledge to the fullest. The spectrum is not for Cell C, it's not for Vodacom, it's not for MTN, and not for Telkom to make money out of. This is our spectrum, comrades. We must start. The state must own it, and it must be distributed to the people that are most deserving. Thank you.
And they must come to account about it, because we cannot have an uncounted for utilizing again the power of the state and utilizing the power of the people and not being able to account for some of the things. One thing I wanted just maybe to just
sorry, Sandile, before you go on,
yes,
sorry, before you go on. And I also want to appreciate the fact that we have a comrade that's studying in China, because the diatribe that you see in this COVID-19 narrative around 5G and how the effects of 5G and Corona, and our black people are buying into the stupid narrative. You know, the fact that you have a comrade studying there in China, and he must continuously share his experiences, not only on this platform, but publicly, you know, maybe write an article in one of the journals or newspapers that our people read often. This diatribe and the Huawei and I think what's the other company called? You know, the fact that they have advanced so much ahead in rolling out the 5G technology as opposed to the West, you know, is an advantage because we belong to the BRICS community, right? It's an advantage for us. So we must take advantage of that. We must use Comrades Sibusiso as the expert on that side, you know, and allow Huawei to and the likes. And I just can't remember the other company. I think it's called Zytel or something like that.
Zytel, yeah, Zytel.
Yeah. I think you know, we must use them to advance our economy through the 4IR methodology. Thank you, comrades.
So thank you very much. Thank you very much for the insight. And I think for me, one of the key things on this and the reason for this particular part was really to enlighten, because I think we sometimes run short of ideas and run short of spaces to actually be able to educate each other. You know, I always say, because now it's been opened up in kind of conversations around being comrade, I mean, and being active politically. One thing that I miss sometime in our own politics in these days, past 94, it's a space where in part of being active in KwaZulu-Natal, we will used to have a room where there was a TV and a video, which we come in just to come and listen to the messages that were being passed through to us, that we need to understand what was happening. I mean, those kind of your teach one kind of principle of I've got information, each one teach one. Where I've got information, Sibusiso's got information. It might be a very of a privileged information if you consider the fact that Sibusiso is currently in China, in the midst of so much changes that are happening. How do we educate each other? I mean, when we quiet down on Facebook, when we quiet down on Zoom, where do we sit unplugged and be able to talk about our future and talk about our self-driving car, talk about how we're going to be able to revolutionize the way our resources are going to come out of the ground and create a new economy? I want just to be clear about this, because I think for me, this have hit a very nice level of conversation that I enjoy in my life. There is no reason why there's no reason why our platinum can go on a ship as a resource to go and build a robotic arm in another country. Yes, for economic of scales, we might need to actually be able to say quarterly, how do we have quotas of what moves out overseas while we generate and develop our part? Is it not time for us to sit together, manufacture these things home? Is it not time for us to be able to come together and do these things in our land and do these things in our country? Is it not time for us to start thinking about it differently and actually transform how the fourth industrial revolution looked like for us? Because that's where we are. And I want us just to be able to think about it and educate each other and actually understand to read. It's the only way to learn how to do new things. In the fourth industrial revolution, power lies in reading. You know, I was going to say I'm going to wrap up, but I'm not going to wrap up, because if ever there's always going to be a leadership that comes in just to come and actually say hello to us. I want us to actually open up a little bit of space for Dr. Ulona or Professor Morola, who's joined us, just to come and give a little bit of insight. He has been listening on Facebook, and we asked him just to come and give a little bit of insight in this topic and this conversation. And I know that we might have passed our time, but it's for the good cause. And I want us just to really just take a little bit of input from him, and then be able to say, by the way, how then do we look forward, how do we wrap? Prof, thank you very much for giving us our time. And I know that we just kind of like asked you promptly to come and give us our contribution. And again, I like the fact that being a deputy chair of the Industrial Revolution Commission, and being a VC for EU University of Johannesburg, and so much experience that you have around some of the topics we've been speaking about. And I know your insights might be very worthwhile just to listen to and understand your contribution. I will give it over to you, And I just say, by the way, guide us. I mean, you're an elder here, same as Praveen has been guiding us, and I know you will have a very good insight into this.
Thank you very much, Sandile. I hope everybody can hear me. I also would like to pay my tributes to the people who have joined us this afternoon. I think I just wanted to follow up on what Sibusiso said. You know, the fact that the colonial legacy, where Africa was exporting raw materials and importing finished goods, is something that we have to put to the past. But we are not going to be able to put to the past if we do not have enough educated people. Because for somebody to start making a car, for somebody to start making a cell phone, for somebody to start making an iPad or a computer, the first thing that you need to have is the knowledge of those technologies that go into the making of those goods. So, and that knowledge can only be obtained through education. I did post here that if you can't read, if you don't read, you should not lead. And the reason for that is because if we are going to expect you to lead us into the digital age, the age at which South Africa will be able to produce its own electronic goods, you actually have to understand what that digital age is all about. And if you are able to understand the technology in even greater detail, then the better. Sibusiso is doing his PhD in AI in China. And he probably would have told you that leadership in China is very technical. The president of China is a chemical engineer. He succeeded Hu Jintao, who was a civil engineer, who succeeded Jiang Zemin, who was an electrical engineer. And I think that is actually quite something that we need to learn from. If we are going to create industries, we have to have people, enough people in leadership who look like people whom, if you give them a factory, they will be able to run it and to run it well. So I think you said it very well, Sandile, that reading is very, very important. It's about learning, relearning and learning again and relearning, because there is no shortcut of acquiring knowledge than learning. We have not yet discovered a mechanism in which we can upload knowledge directly into our brain. Maybe in the future, you know, in the 5th industrial revolution, maybe we will be able to install a memory plug into our bodies so that we can upload information directly into the brain without necessarily having to learn. But before that time, we have to learn, otherwise we are not going to compete as a society. So thank you very much, Sandile, and thank you very much for your listeners. And I hope we can be able to take this society forward together.
And together we will, because that's what we're actually being given the opportunity to do it. And I really acknowledge and I thank you for actually accepting this short invitation to come and just give insight. And one thing that we have said in this forum, and as I close, we're really not going to talk about it so much. We will start doing things even more. And we'll start actually challenging people to doing things into submission of the fact that we can make a difference in our own society. We can make difference in some of the places where we want to be working. So I think in acknowledging what the Prof have just really blessed us in a very short time that he came in to talk with us, I want us just to really, really acknowledge the fact that it's only, and again, I will say it again, while we don't know, we can't upload some of knowledge in our mind, it's only through reading, it's only through networking, it's only through joining the correct places that you can start really learning how to transform and actually be able to be a country ahead. And I do believe and I do accept the fact that unless you lead with knowledge, unless you lead because you got experience, we will never be led in the right direction. and we always have to suffer on some of the things that we can be able to solve. As I wrap up, I really, really would like to invite everybody to say, let's go digital as a platform is really all about coming out there, exposing our knowledge, exposing the people who are achieving because of where they're coming from and utilizing where they're coming, they are doing. Next week, by the way, we're going to be hosting some ladies who actually have done so many interesting stuff. And one of the ladies actually is going to be coming live. It's a lady who actually starts working informally around assembling components and building the tablet, building the TV. She's very experienced around it. Guess what, by the way? Currently, she doesn't have a job. She's suffering. With all those skills, with all this knowledge, I will be hosting her, hosting some of the technology company owners, and hosting another sister of mine, Undonga Mkhwanazi. She's actually doing the similar things that we are doing in GoDigitalSA. She's going to rural areas and teaching kids how to code and coming up with a new way of STEM. And I think for me, this is the new thing that we want to do every Saturday. Spend our hours just talking about the reality of it. And by the way, I want just to thank Siphiwe. I want to thank Sbu. Pravila, I want to thank you again for coming in and just really exposing yourself in the conversation. And I really, really want to thank you guys, not just because you gave me your time. I want just to thank you because you are being honest. I mean, I know how much of activist you are, and I know how much you're politically active. I always like to listen to the heart of a political active person because it always speaks the truth. The logic might not be there, but the truth is known, and we know exactly where we want to go. And the fourth industrial revolution is actually giving us a leapfrogging and being able to get there. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your time and I appreciate your honesty. And more than anything else, please, in future, if ever I ask you to join, please join with a clear understanding. We are giving an opportunity to translate information to people and to talk to some of the people. One of the interesting comments I picked up on Facebook, by the way, firstly, we are saying, wow, powerful, very powerful, Prof. Thank you for insight. One of the other one, which actually made me very smile, was like, the level of this conversation should have been on national television where everybody can learn and look at the new insight. And others are saying, by the way, when is this show going to be on TV? Because this is what we want to hear and people must learn. And the other one was like, wow, I've learned a lot today. This is kind of insights that we have woken up to today and actually being able to do part of just helping people to think differently. I like the other one. It says fourth industrial revolution practically is a daily life. And this is what you're supposed to be doing all the time. Prabin, you wanted to say bye, and I'm going to just allow you just to say bye, sentence of bye, and then I will be able to switch off from being live. Prabin is going to start with yourself as an elder, and then we'll move on to the young people. Prabin?
Sorry, I just want to make a correction for Sibusiso. Our pass rate is not 50%, by the way, comrade. It's 30%.
Oh,
I think you're inflating our academic standards. And when the Professor Marwala says that we must learn and we need intelligence, having somebody, I don't know what the science academic. We all been through some sort of tertiary education in our lives. We know the difficulties. He's not going to take you anywhere. The second point is, Comrade, just as a critique, you've got extremely guests and participants on this channel, on this program. I'm quite surprised that you don't have our so-called decision makers, apart from obviously Prof. Marwala, but the decision makers need to start getting into these discussions where we stop talking shop, but we actually start getting things done. That's what I wanted to say. You know, I mean, you look at whether it's Department of Higher Education, Department of Basic Education, or Science and Technology, or Trade and Industry, etc. Those people are not here, but yet they are the ones that are advocating something that they don't understand. what Sibusiso, what Prof. Marwala, what Siphiwe is saying. They are the ones that are advocating these things out there and sending the wrong message to the people, and they create an elitism around this thing. Our so-called bureaucrats and politicians. I don't like getting involved in political discussions anymore, Sandile. You know my activism. You know where I lie in terms of my allegiances, etc. But I'll make it publicly known to you. I'm no longer a member of the ANC, although I'm a sympathizer of the ANC, largely because our comrades have lost the plot. You know, Prof. Marwala has put it very, very clearly and very aptly that if you don't have educated people running the country, you're doomed for failure.
Thank you very much. That's the elder. The elder, when they speak, you know, sometimes you feel the goosebumps and thinking, oops, yeah, that's a reality though. And again, I mean, Sibusiso, what do you say? From China, Baba, where you are currently, what is your departing words? I cannot hear you, Sibusiso. I wanted to just try again for me. I don't know if there is a mute button or something that is killing us. Okay, you try again. Okay, I'm gonna take Siphiwe meantime so I can fix my technology this side to make sure that I can hear you correctly. Siphiwe, can you be able maybe to take the part on this, and then when I was fix up with the with my friend in China?
No, it's fine. Let's just take this opportunity first to say thank you to you, Comrade Sandile. It can't be a discussion that we only have when we have a policy conference or we have an elective conference that we are going to, that suddenly we must be eager about technology. I think I want to park it there, number one. And then AS2 is, it's not that there hasn't been an attempt from our government, it's just we are unable to match it in funding. So, example, Gauteng provincial government has this amazing document called the TMR, Transformation, Modernization and Reindustrialization. It speaks about Johannesburg being a central hub for ICT. But in terms of investment from that particular level, it's not happening. You find a company like Amazon building a data center somewhere in Cape Town. So I want to say these conversations must not just be conversations. Can it be foot soldiers on the ground? Can it be supported by the funding? And the political will must always be able to push young people towards this direction. And yeah, masenze ni metsebe compulsory. Masenze ni metsebe compulsory.
Bakana, come back, Baba. I think now you are live again. If you can just come back for me. Loud and clear, Baba.
Yes, thanks for the opportunity. I think one, we need to, I think it's in part of closing, we need to have a localized AI. Let's bring Ubuntuism, Ubuntu also in this concept, in these algorithms. One of the most important one that I want to say is that we need patriots. Wherever you are going as a South African, whether you are outside South Africa, we are in South Africa, all of us, we need to know that we are working for South Africa. So let's have let's make sure we are in South Africa. If ever we are outside, I'm not promoting any crime. If we're doing crime outside, at least do it for South Africa. Bring everything to South Africa. You know, I think I'll just close there. We need patriots for us to be, in fact, doing good in this particular level of fourth industrial revolution. And lastly, thank you very much for this opportunity. And thanks for everyone. I've learned a lot. Some of the things that I was not even aware. And I think I need to encourage the other guest, Prabir, that I'm tired of talking English while I'm also here in China, while I have to talk Chinese also. So when I'm talking with South Africans, I want to talk in local language. Can we all also learn the local languages? Thank you very much.
I think that is well said as we close. I mean, can we really be South Africans? Can we really emulate who we are? Can we really be the people who are going to change and transform the view of our country and the way people they like us and the way they continue? I want to really thank you. I mean, I thank you. We have gone beyond the time that I planned and I've asked for. from your side. Sibu, thank you very much for joining us from China. And I mean, thank you very much for giving us insights. And by the way, thank you very much for always supporting online whenever there's things and the requests that come through your part from my side or from some of the organizations that are out there. Siphiwe, thank you very much for really representing. And two of you, what I like what you said, you know that guy from eMkhukhwini, umuntu wase Ivory Park, thank you for not being stuck on the possibility of not making it just because of where you were born and where you grew up. I think for me, you guys are representing the young people that actually have kind of like pushed themselves beyond the limit. Uma ukuthi uphume Ivory Park and uma uyazi Ivory Park, uma ungayazi, please Google it and check what Ivory Park is. Kodwa today, as young as you are, Siphiwe, in the age that you are, I'm sure 35, 36, I'm not sure anymore with age. If or 38 years graduated already.
I know, no, I'm very young. I'm very young. I've not graduated. I'm still in my 30s.
So with the early 30s that you are able to call yourself a data scientist. Other people take long before they feel confident to use such a language. And I mean, as young as you are, Sibusiso, thank you very much for being able to say, you know what, I took the decision and I was advised to do something to go and pursue artificial intelligence in China. I was even willing to do it in Chinese. That is power when you're coming from Ivory Park, where somebody would think maybe your problem should have been how do I speak English adequately. But you are saying to me, no, I'm going to China. I'm going to learn artificial intelligence, and I'm willing to learn it in a foreign language, speaking Chinese, because I want knowledge and I want it at that level. I think for me, you guys emulate a young person in a day like this one, in Mandela Day, we call it. You're emulating a young person, a young comrade who's supposed to be able to say, you know what, I will lead even if it's not for the position. I will lead even if I'm not being asked to. And I will actually be able to emulate the success of my country. And I will actually show where we're going as a country. In people like yourself, we've got leadership. And that's what I wanted just to say in the end. We've got people who are actually going to take us to next. And when we ask, as old people with gray hair now, like Prabir, we actually can be able to slip back and say, you know what, there is future and the future is bright. And there's future and our kids and the kids of our kids are actually going to be led correctly and they're going somewhere. Prabir, I do take what you said. And I think for me, we should not take it lightly about how some of us being active that you are and being having a heart of the organization, a heart of the society, the heart of our country. But sometimes we feel like we let down sometimes with the way things are being done. But I know for a fact that it never stops you from doing the right thing and making sure that you actually advocate for the right thing and innovate right. And I want to challenge everybody out there to say, by the way, what have you done differently to actually advocate for the right thing that you want to be? How have you actually gone through this era we're going into of the COVID and all the things that you are observing and changing the world? How have you advocated for the right thing and how you've done differently? I work for an organization that does technology in the most advanced places, but I actually still work again for GoDigitalSA. It's a foundation that we founded. We're saying that 3 years ago, I don't know how we knew this, but we knew that the world is going digital. And we knew that unless we do it as a social thing, and unless we do it as an NGO, and making sure we're educating kids and educating people around technology, we don't have the future. GoDigitalSA Foundation, it's all about advocating for digital skills, advocating for the fourth industrial revolution, working with the STEM, being science, technology, engineering, and maths. And we even said it nicely, we want to make it plus art, we want to make it enterprise development too. How to make sure that in Africa, in technology, wherever we are, we actually have young people who understand it, who can do correctly. GoDigitalSA today, by the way, it's actually primed within SABC, within SABC Ukhozi FM. Every Thursday, we're talking about technology in Zulu to make sure that our people understand it. And we're actually currently influencing that. We want to see it in Venda, we want to see it in Tswana, we want to see it in all South African languages, 11 of them if we have to, because we need to talk this thing in our language and get used to language. And again, we have started with the Tala Bank, and I want to say it and known publicly, working with the Tala Bank, we actually have founded an online virtual preparation for matriculant. Every day between 4 and 5, we've got teachers who are actually working as volunteers for the foundation, who are actually taking kids from accounting, maths, physical science, in languages Zulu. We're doing it in Zulu, even Zulu, and we actually have added up about learning support, where these particular teachers spend an hour and educating young people how to prepare yourself in this very bad time. We're going toward the exam. How to prepare yourself as a person, how to prepare yourself to answer the question correctly. And I can say it proudly, and we're trying to influence it even more. We can proudly tell you that we are doing some of the subjects, mixing high level in Zulu, and we're actually starting other languages. So we're learning maths, infusing a lot of vernacular language into it, so that you make sure these kids are being prepared correctly. The last part of it is this forum. And then we've got computer science forum that runs every Tuesday, learning basic computer science. Every Tuesday afternoon, we're teaching young people, all people, what is computer science is what's going to be. I mean, we appreciate being part of GoDigitalSA Foundation because it gives us chances like this one to be able to do this part. Once again, thank you very much, and we really appreciate your listening to us and participating in this particular forum. And next week, it won't be as long as this one. I think this one, we're just taken by the real momentum, and we actually went for about 2 hours, but normally we be an hour. Really appreciate it, and really thank you very much to my guest, and thank you very much for people who have contributed. Really love you and appreciate it. Thank you.